Hey friends, welcome back to the Deadly Darlings podcast. I'm Misty and you've been following along. We've been unraveling the tragic and truly mysterious deaths of Cynthia and Greg Gobble. I've got Danielle here with me. She is an amazing investigative journalist. She is the voice behind the Justice for the Gobbles Facebook page. She is also, if you'll read the description below, Justice for Gobbles. Follow Danielle at Voices for Justice with Danielle on YouTube and TikTok. So don't forget to follow her. And Danielle, I feel like every time that we talk about this case, we find more cracks in the story. And I think it's time that we talk about the discovery of the bodies, the differences in the medical exam, um, and why it was so quick to be labeled a murder suicide.
Right.
I do. So, um, the thing is, the way they were found, it was almost too perfect. It fits the narrative that they were trying to sell right from the beginning. But when you look closer, the evidence just doesn't line up. You want to start off with what led up to this?
The timeline.
Yes.
So on Wednesday, May 29th, 2024, Gregory spent the day at his mom's house working on her farm, and he had mentioned to his mother when he was leaving that Cindy was getting off from work early that night, should be getting off around 6 p.m., and they had plans to go out for dinner together. Around 9:55 p.m., Davie County Police got a call to do a well-being check because Brandy Dry, that's Cynthia's daughter, wasn't able to get in touch with her. And Cynthia and Gregory were not seen again until the morning of Friday, May 31st, 2024. They were discovered around 11:30 a.m. I had done a Freedom of Information Act request for information pertaining to 803 Howard Avenue in South Carolina because I was looking into the Micah Francis case.
Yes.
And that's when I first heard the 911 call, and it was placed by an investigator from Davie County to Myrtle Beach Police, saying that there was a missing couple and that two witnesses had just called in a potential sighting at 803 Howard Avenue. And the investigator also said that he had done an interview earlier that day, and the person he interviewed had told him that Greg had a connection to that church. So that is kind of what started this, my looking into the Gobbles case. And the more I looked into it, the more suspicious things seemed. But the thing that first caught my attention was absolutely that 911 call, and knowing that there's already been several people closely associated with John Paul Miller who have wound up unalived. What I found most strange was there were certain inconsistencies between different reports. And when I called the Davie County Sheriff's Department to just ask for clarification, I was told I would need a signed order by a judge of competent jurisdiction.
That's very odd.
So Cindy was married to David Beck. With David Beck, she had her daughter Brandy. Some years later, she married Stephen Beaver, and with Stephen, she had her son Josh. Greg had different relationships, and with one of those relationships, he had a son, Kendall.
Okay. So with the family dynamic, they had been married at the time of their disappearance. How long?
So they got married in 2012. So they would have been married for about 12 years.
There was a previous marriage that Cynthia had been in, and he also had lost his life. Can you kind of touch base on that?
Cynthia had been married to a man named Stephen Beaver. Together they had Josh. Stephen actually owned the home at 348 Country Lane. Stephen and Cynthia had separated. Cindy was staying elsewhere, and she would go back to the house to do laundry for Stephen and for her son Josh. Allegedly, around that time, Stephen was using different substances. the son Josh had done a video on Twitch where he kind of talked about the events of that day. He said that, his dad told him that he had a doctor's appointment, that he had to come home straight after school. He was feeling a bit defiant, a bit rebellious, and just said no. And rather than going home right after school, as he was instructed to do, he went to his girlfriend's house. And that probably saved his life.
Wow.
Because a short time later, Cynthia went to the home at 348 Country Lane. She parked her car in the driveway. Stephen then pulled up behind her and blocked her car so that she wouldn't be able to leave the driveway. And he got out with a knife. And that is when he attacked Cynthia. He did stab her with it, but she was able to get away from him. She was able to get out from on the passenger side. And she ran to a neighbor's house, and they provided her assistance. They called the police. The police were then in pursuit of Stephen Beaver. From what I understand, he pulled out in front of a truck to be hit, and his life ended.
Wow.
Now, back at the house, they found notes that he had written. The plan was he was going to kill Josh, then Cindy, and then himself.
He's going to annihilate the whole family.
Mm-hmm. And luckily, Josh and Cindy survived.
Praise the Lord. That's insane. So, again, Brandy, which is Cynthia's daughter, is not from Stephen. It was from the previous marriage, the first marriage.
Right, to David Beck.
Okay. And do you remember what year it was that Stephen passed away?
That, I believe, was like 2000, somewhere between like 2007 and 2009.
Okay. And so then she remarries, and that's when she marries Greg. And you said 2012, I believe.
Right, 2012.
Okay. And so they're a blended family. Do you know anything about the dynamics of how the family lived? How were they? When he got married, was all the kids still in the house, or?
So when Cindy and Greg got married, I believe that Kendall lived with them. That was Greg's son from a previous relationship. Josh moved out to Colorado. He is a very successful gamer. Makes awesome. a lot of money doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
After what he's been through, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Cindy's daughter, Brandy, she lives on property owned by her father's family. From what I understand, she lives in a trailer on the Beck's property. Stephen Beaver had owned a trucking company. Mm-hmm. So they lived kind of luxuriously for the area. They were a well-to-do family. And from what I understand, the Becks are also a well-to-do family. And so a lot of money, a lot of more luxurious living.
So leading up to this, had there ever been any signs of any, family violence, domestic violence in the home between Greg, Cindy, the children? Had there been any conflicts between the children and, the parents? I mean, do you know of anything that's leading us up to this?
So I know that there was no documented domestic violence or observed domestic violence from anybody I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a lot of people very close to Greg and Cindy. He was not a violent person, and he worshipped the ground that Cindy walked on. The only conflict I'm aware of is conflicts that originate with Cindy's daughter, Brandy.
Okay.
So, allegedly, absolutely hated Stephen Beaver. So that was a conflict. And Brandy also didn't really get along with her mom, from what I was told. In around 2017, there was an incident where allegedly Brandy had taken a check from her mother, and had written herself a check for a pretty substantial amount of money. And when it was noticed that the money was gone, they held her accountable. And
Did they press charges?
no, but she had been told that she needed to pay that money back, and she was not happy about it. From what I understand, the family gathered at 348 Country Lane for Christmas, and Brandy had a lot of attitude, refused to so much as pass the potatoes. Greg had had enough, and so he put his foot down and he said, "Get your family, get your things, get out of my house, because you're not going to be disrespectful to your mother."
Right.
And from there, Brandy cut off contact with her mother. She did not speak to her again until about a year before Greg and Cindy died. I had also been told that Brandy hated her brother Josh. So,
which is Steven's son.
Correct. Yep, okay. Her half brother, because Josh was the youngest, and there can be some favoritism there, or perceived favoritism.
Oh, yeah.
But I had also been told that Brandy had made the comment that she didn't put up with Steve Beaver all those years just to lose her inheritance to Kendall and Greg.
Wow. So she said this in relations to Greg.
Yeah. Oh, and she really hated Greg. From what I was told, she was fine with Greg right up until they got married. When she found out her mother had married Greg, that's when she kind of turned and started hating him.
The family dynamic doesn't seem that good, honestly. Right. But as far as Josh and Greg's son, what was Greg's son's name again? Kendall. They still were in good standing before this happened?
Yeah. From what I was told, Josh and Kendall had a great relationship.
Awesome.
Up until this happened.
Okay. Well, lead us up into, so like Danielle and I actually met because of the Micah Francis movement and Justice for Micah, all the way, and Justice for all victims. I always have to say that. But I was very blessed to have met Danielle, and I started listening to all of her lives about this case. And the more and more, Danielle, that I listen to you and you talk and some of the things that you've shared with me, it's, to me, it's not a cut and dry case at all. To me, there is a lot of discrepancies and there's a lot of mistakes. So take me back to, okay, so you found the 911 call about them being at the church, at Solid Rock Church, which is what got you interested in this case. And I'm so glad, because I think that Cynthia and Greg need you. They need justice, and I appreciate what you're doing. Can you kind of go over what you've learned since then? Because you FOIA'd initially, and then didn't you FOIA some more and got more information? I remember. So tell us about that.
Sure. So I had done a Freedom of Information Act request with Davie County and Iredell County. Initially, each of them only sent me the original investigative reports that they had written up. So for Davie County, it was a report that discusses that there was a missing person report that then turned into a homicide. Yep. So that's the report from Davie County that basically just says that they have a missing person or abduction, and then first degree murder. So first degree kidnapping and then first degree murder. And the next one will be Iredell County, and that is from when they found them. Okay. This one is Iredell County, and this gives the itemized list of items they found at the scene that they collected as evidence. It shows the 9mm 6 hour, the 9mm Smith & Wesson, and it also shows the 2 spent casings that were recovered from the scene, both 9mm.
All right. So you get this information, um, and you find out about this case, and you start digging.
Hmm.
And at this time, the case was still open when you first started, correct?
No,
They hadn't closed it, right?
no, they had
They
closed
had.
it.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so they'd already closed it. Okay, I couldn't remember if they were about to, because didn't they close it in October?
So yeah, so I started looking into all of this in October,
That's
and
right.
um, they had closed the case out. I believe back in June. I believe they closed everything like June 3rd, but Cindy's autopsy and medical examiner report still had not been finalized. Um, and then those were finalized. I want to say it was early November. I think it was November 6th.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
we're gonna look over those actually too, because
yeah,
there's some things that you want to talk about with that. So you start looking into this case, and then tell me what was some of the first things that struck you, and kind of take us into.
yeah. So so and the initial thing that got my attention was that 911 call. The next thing that got my attention, I reached out to Davie County and the secrecy around the case, not wanting to clarify the discrepancies for me. And they were such simple discrepancies to clear up. So, in one report, it said Greg was found in front of the truck, and another report, it said he was found behind the truck. The biggest thing that I had found was on the second page of Greg's medical examiner report. It said that the bullet that killed him was a 22 caliber,
Let's pull that.
but there was no 22 caliber at the scene. There were only 9mm firearms. Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is the
So
first page.
so it's the second page. There we go.
Yep. And right there, handgun caliber 22.
And tell us about why that is interesting. Why that means that he didn't do this to himself.
So it would be impossible to fire a 22 caliber bullet from a 9mm firearm without special modification or some kind of an adapter. Those types of things would have been listed on the evidence list, but also, from what I understand, Greg didn't have modified weapons. He did have a variety of weapons, but he used them as they were. He didn't modify them or use
Speak,
accessories like that.
speaking of that, speaking of Greg worked with the sheriff's department training their dogs, correct?
Yeah, he was a canine dog trainer, and he did the dog training for a lot of the sheriff's departments.
Not just Davie County, but a lot of the surroundings, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. Okay, so now we're here, and you realize, hey, they're saying that the measurements are of a 22, yet there was only one gun found at the scene, and that gun was a 9mm.
Technically two guns, but they were both 9mm. Yes.
Okay,
Um,
okay, see?
and it's possible that one of those 9mm was Cindy's, because Cindy did have a concealed carry permit, and she
Mhm.
did always carry a gun on her.
So that happens, and you see this, and you start digging some more. Um, then when do you open up and start because you first started the Facebook page, correct? The
I
Justice
started
for
the
Gobbles.
Facebook page just in February.
Okay. Oh, just now in February.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did you had your YouTube already and your TikTok already?
Yeah, people private messaged me. A lot of people started private messaging me, and people who knew both Greg and Cindy, and they all said Greg would not have done this. He just wasn't like that. He was the type of person who would pick up the phone and call in a suspicion of a crime being committed. He would never be the one to commit the crime.
Right.
And because of that, I wondered if there might be more people who felt that way. And so I started the Facebook page. I wanted to be as transparent as possible, put the documents up there and let people see for themselves, because a lot of people in North Carolina have concealed carry permits, and they know that you cannot fire a 22 caliber bullet out of a 9mm firearm. You just can't do it.
You sure can't.
I reached out to some friends of mine who work for medical examiners' offices, who had the pathologists they work with take a look, and just in case anybody ever did try to claim the 22 was a typo, they confirmed for me that those measurements are impossible to occur from a 9mm. A bullet wound that small can only be made by a 22.
And that is science. Science, people. That can't be changed. But are you ready to jump into that?
Sure.
Okay. So we're going to kind of skip ahead a second, because this is kind of where things took off for a lot of us. A lot of us were just, when you went live about this, and you had called me and we had looked at things and talked about it, but when you went live, it just blew our minds. Okay, so let's start with the phone call. You were talking about the lash, or the kickback, or not even the kickback, the standoffish of the Davie Sheriff's Department about giving you any information. So kind of go there into what we're about to talk about.
Yeah. So anytime I have ever called Davie County Sheriff's Office, I have been told, when I talk to the sheriff, he tells me he was not the person who directly investigated the case. Therefore, he said, I don't know to every question I asked him. And that actually had also stood out to me, because I talked to him once and I asked him if he had ever heard about JP, and I told him the whole backstory of how I even came to hear the 911 call to begin with. And he told me he had never heard about JP Miller. So I gave him a little bit of background. I explained to him how I heard the 911 call and why I'm calling him in that moment.
Right.
A while later, I called him again, and I had said to him, well, I'm sure you know by now about John Paul Miller, and he claimed he didn't know anything about him.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, well, since I recently spoke to you and told you all about him, I know that's not true.
Wow, really?
And then
it was the same one.
it was the sheriff. So yes. And then
it wasn't just a deputy. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so then other times I've called, I also called to speak with the investigators who actually investigated the case. I called to speak with Chad Hemmings and with Captain DJ Smith. They also would not answer any questions. Captain DJ Smith wanted to know if I was a podcaster. I corrected for him that I had a YouTube channel and a TikTok, but not a podcast. And then he told me he was not going to be answering any of my questions.
Right before you made that phone call, I had done a video advertising this actual podcast right here, that you and I had discussed doing an episode, or as many as it takes, for you to get justice for the Gobbles. I love having you here and love talking to you, just, in general. But, and so news had already traveled. They already knew about this podcast, and all we had done was post a video about it. We hadn't even started it yet.
Right.
So also, wasn't there a family member of Greg's that called as well?
So in that video that you had made, correcting DJ Smith and letting him know
I addressed him. I sure did.
Podcast.
That's what we do.
Somebody posted in the comments claiming to be a family member, and said that she had also called to confirm whether or not Brandy's Facebook post. So Brandy had done a Facebook post.
That's right.
And so somebody had come onto the Facebook for the Gobble page and was commenting, telling me to look at her aunt's Facebook page because it was a typo and I was wrong and I needed to know that and to correct the story I was putting out there.
I am going to continue. Go ahead. I'm going to put this up on the screen. I have the actual Facebook post, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. And so I then told the young girl that I couldn't see that person, her aunt's Facebook page because it was, private. And her aunt is Brandy Dry, which is Cindy's daughter. So then she sent me screenshots and it said it was a typo. I just confirmed it with the sheriff's department. So I had called the Davie County Sheriff's Department. I asked to speak to Captain DJ Smith. He told me he wasn't going to talk to me. Then, alleging that I was a podcaster, you put out your video, and then somebody alleging to be a family member said that she had also seen the screenshots that were shared to the Just for the Gobble page about Brandy's post. So she had reached out to the sheriff's department to try to confirm whether or not that was true because nobody in Greg's family knew anything about there being a typo. Nobody was informed of anything. And that is when they asked her if she had talked to Brandy because she needed, I guess, her permission, Brandy's permission, to find out about changes made to Gregory's report.
So I'm going to exit out of that. This is where I'm at with this. We're not in her shoes, but I would want all of the answers, all of the questions answered. I would want to know where, if there was any discrepancies, if this was my mother, if as hardcore as she is on saying that Greg did this, how can she not see that there's the discrepancies that we see with our own two eyes? And so that's kind of worrisome to me.
I mean, so with the Just for the Gobbles Facebook page, people are reaching out by the dozens. And I've heard just shocking stories about some of the players involved. And I think if there had been an actual investigation, they would have seen that someone drained Greg and Cindy's bank accounts right after.
I didn't know this. Do elaborate, please.
So Greg actually had a good amount of money. He had gotten money as a beneficiary, I believe. But I just know that he had a good like $30,000 or $40,000 in the bank, and he and Cindy had a joint account. And by the time people were getting the printouts, the records of what was in there, they could tell that tens of thousands of dollars had been drained.
Okay, so this is after the fact. That's illegal. That's illegal.
I have found at least a dozen illegal things that have happened since Greg and Cindy were found deceased.
Do you think that Davie County is seriously just turning their head to this because of who they were, and just like JP thought this would go away in 2 weeks, and here we are a year later, and we're going stronger than we ever have been. Um, that's the same thing that needs to happen here. Like, they need to understand that this isn't going to go away.
Right. And honestly, from what I have been told by a lot of people in that community, when Brandy is mad at you, you feel it. So actually, a lot of the people, the only hesitations that they have is that they don't want Davie County Sheriff's Department finding out, because they don't want them to make their lives miserable, and they don't want Brandy to find out. And
Intimidation.
mhm. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I've been told already a lot of stories about that. And I think that to some extent, people's jobs, their connections through their jobs are also playing a role, because, Brandy has been a volunteer firefighter for several years. So has her husband. Her
Okay.
husband actually is the supervisor for emergency medical services for Davie County. And so he has a lot of, in that kind of a role, he would have a lot of communication with surrounding counties, and with different departments within Davie County. And
Absolutely.
one thing I thought was very interesting was, shortly after Greg and Cynthia were found deceased, there was a conflict that occurred between emergency medical services and law enforcement. And yeah, there was conflict. There was a lot of tension. And I can't help but wonder if it has anything to do with these connections.
Seems like there's a little bit of, or a lot of power behind a lot of the people involved in this as well. Not to mention that, we deal with that with Micah's case. The pockets are deep. The power runs all the way now. We're knowing, finding out, to the governor. And then you have this case that's actually, no doubt, intertwined somehow with Micah or with JP Solid Rock. Um, this power that they think they have, well, it's between South Carolina and North Carolina. I don't even know what to think anymore. And I'm from
Right.
Alabama. They've always said that we were crooked or what, and we are. We have some people that are crooked in our state. I know, but I I don't even know what to say about these two states. I'm just blown away at the stuff that I've seen.
And a lot of people thought that Greg and Cynthia's investigation would have been handled with the utmost of integrity.
I would have thought so too.
I was told, you know, luckily, Iredell County handled it. But
That was my question, but continue.
when I looked into it, from what I can tell, Iredell County only processed the crime scene. That is about it. Because, when I reached out to the medical examiner's office, the one thing they did tell me was that that all the possessions had been handed over to Davie County, all the evidence, all the clothing, the things they had on them, anything that was sent in with the bodies went to Davie County. And every inquiry I've made about testing of different items were gunshot residue tests done, was the duct tape tested. There were other things I know I asked about if they were tested. I can't think of what they are right now. Iredell County couldn't tell me anything. They told me that they turned everything over to Davie. And
That's the problem. That's a problem. That's not how this works. That's what I don't understand. You don't get that. That's unethical. That's just not how it works. if a crime is committed in this county is in charge of the investigation unless one of the FBI or three-letter agents come in and take over, or asked to. Not the county that they're from. It has nothing. I mean, yeah, they went missing there, but they didn't die there.
So, and I also had spoken to a lot of people who are family members of Greg and Cindy's, and also current and former sheriff's deputies from Davie County. And one thing that was interesting was nobody could tell me what happened to Greg's clothing, because the family had actually requested for his clothing to be returned to them so that they could get it independently tested for gunshot residue.
As they should have.
And they are unable to do that because the evidence no longer exists.
Excuse me? What do you mean?
From what I understand, Davie County Sheriff ordered for it to be burned.
Okay. Okay, I'm blown away even more. I didn't even know that. I don't. Maybe you've told me, but no, you've never told me that. That just didn't even register. If you did, that is insane, Danielle. Insane. So far we've got the fact that a 22 was used but wasn't found at the scene on Greg. We know it was because of the measurements. We have
the fraudulent change of the medical examiner report that was also never, like the next of kin, the family of the decedent whose medical record this is, was never informed of this change. But the daughter of the person Greg is being accused of unaliving, that person was told about the change. To take it a step further really quick, Cindy's estate is suing Gregory's estate. And so what Davie County did was they gave one side kind of like a huge like leg up, if you will, by informing them of a change that's significant. And but at the end of the day, the measurements don't change, and the measurements that Greg's wound could not have been made with a 9mm. They can change all the reports they want. It does not change the size of the wound.
no, that's not
or the weird trajectory. The trajectory is another really weird thing.
Tell me about that.
It just seems so incredibly awkward to have been self I don't know how to say it.
We're on you. We'll be on YouTube. So in Spotify, you're more than welcome to say it.
Okay. But yeah, so incredibly awkward, but also, so in most self unalivings, there is an upward trajectory. In Greg's case, it was a downward trajectory. When you look at the part of the head that the entrance wound would have had to have happened, it was so high up, and there was no soot and intermediate stippling, which means that it was far enough away that there was no soot or unburned gunpowder. And the intermediate part tells you that it's anywhere from 6 inches to 2 feet away. But it is, so I had gotten styrofoam heads to try to do out the measurements.
Yes.
But the styrofoam heads, I overlooked a detail. I had read somewhere that it was like above his temple, his temple. So I was going off of that. And, I measured, and I thought it would have been right around like here, I guess, right around here. This is not even the parietal part of the skull. The parietal of the skull is back here.
Yes. So
So,
so far what you're telling me, it feels like it's from behind
and above.
and above, like he was on his knees.
Yeah. Not only that, when I take that into consideration, right, the downward trajectory, right to left, um, and so trying to work it out like it had been done to himself, I couldn't figure out a way it would have been done without doing a hard lean to the left. But even still, I can't figure out how such a wound would have been sustained with a person still landing on their right side.
Oh,
He was found laying on his right side. Yeah.
that's impossible.
So, and it would have been wound right to left, right to left. But I just see the person falling on the left.
Yeah, I would think so too. Talk to me. So then we have that, and then we also have, and I love that you did the styrofoam head, and maybe do it again because it was awesome that you did it. But um, try take us into when you called and to try to get the information. But in the meantime, this is all because Brandy said, not the sheriff's department, but Brandy said that the autopsy was an error. It was a clerical error. And then let's talk about the two differences.
Brandy had written the Facebook post. Because of that, I put in a new request with the Iredell County Medical Examiner's Office. And the people who work there are just so sweet. They were so confused by all of this because she had just sent me these reports on October 23rd. For Gregory, and she had just sent me the reports for Cynthia November 6th because that's when those were closed and finalized, and she told me that they sent them to me the same day. And so she couldn't understand why I was requesting these again, and so I explained to her about the Facebook post that Brandy had written a Facebook post claiming that there was a typo and that she had just confirmed it with the Davie County Sheriff's Department, and that the County Sheriff's Department wouldn't confirm it for me. And so I was calling, I put in a new request to try to get it one way or the other. She told me that she could see that she sent me Greg's on October 23rd. She could see that she sent me Cynthia's on November 6th. Then she didn't see anything else until March 6th of 2025, where she sees that yet again, Greg's case was closed. And I confirmed with her on the, I think, third sentence in Brandy's post. It says it's called a preliminary report because it's not double checked. So I confirmed with the medical examiner's office, was this a preliminary report you sent me? And she goes, no, ma'am. We will only send it out when it has been closed and finalized.
And completed. Yeah.
So then she told me that she saw nothing else until March 6th, 2025, when the case was reclosed. And I had a million questions. Aren't you supposed to notify next of kin? Why does nobody in Greg's family know about this? Why
it was his autopsy report.
Right.
It wasn't Cynthia. It was his. His family should have been.
Which is why it was so interesting to me when I saw on the video that you had made that comment from the woman alleging to be a family member that stated she was told she needs Brandy's permission.
That right there. Why, when the woman, or was it a man or a woman? I can't remember that said that on my post. Can you imagine being a family member and being told that you have but the other side of the family has all the answers or has to give you permission? And why is Davie County Sheriff's Department taking orders from Brandy?
Right. Right. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that that's why a lot of the family members have started to follow the page, because that's the only way they're going to get any updates about the case.
And that's sad. Oh, thank God for you, but that's wrong. That's sad. That's just not how this works or is supposed to work. So I
Right.
think we're finding a little bit more than just some sketchiness. I think we're finding some corruption, some major corruption. And I think that the medical examiner from what was it? The other
Iredell.
county?
Iredell.
Huh. I think that they're kind of like, but let's talk about these. Okay, so this one right here is the original.
Correct.
This one
That's the
is the
new
new
one.
one.
Hmm.
And so we looked at it with the naked eye and ran it through some systems on there's so many discrepancies in this. But the main thing is now it's been changed on the last page, I think,
Well,
or is it
second
that
page
page?
and the last page. So second page, the handgun caliber was changed. In the original report, it said 22, and now on this report, it says 9 millimeter. And then there were, yeah,
Okay, let me ask this. How can they do that when the measurements are for 22?
technically the measurements are in the autopsy report, and that was completed at is it Winston-Salem Hospital. Now, when I called Iredell and I had these questions, Iredell Medical Examiner's Office, I had these questions. They told me I had to reach out to the hospital where they conducted the autopsy. I reach out to the hospital that conducted the autopsy. They tell me they didn't write the medical examiner report, so they can't answer any of my questions. But from my understanding, the doctor that is listed on the autopsy report, Mark Griffin, supervised or oversaw the medical examiner, Gina Jordan, when she conducted the medical examination. He supervises. But another interesting thing is on the first page of the medical examiner report, the new one, there is a signature in the box to the right. I believe the name is Jeffrey Leach. Jeffrey
I'm
Leach.
sorry. Right here?
Yeah. See, Jeffrey P. Leach,
Yes.
2/24/2025. So when I looked him up, he is the supervising pathologist of medical examiner students.
I'm just banging my head right now. Sorry.
But when I call, I cannot, like, nobody will answer the most basic questions for me. And it's funny because the people there really are just so friendly and polite, and other times they have disclosed information to me, so I don't. Then I wonder, every time I call Davie County Sheriff's Office, do they then start reaching out to different departments and offices throughout the area and tell them if Danielle calls, don't pick up or don't answer her
To
question?
silence you. So I can imagine the call out video that I did in the lives that you've done calling them out. I can imagine heated them up, but it's not that we stepped away or you haven't stepped away at all, but we just got everything in order to do this podcast episode. And here we are. And I believe that we need to continue just like this case deserves just as much attention as Micah's does and has gotten. And I also believe that we have to put our we're going to have to put our foot on their necks, and we're just going to have to keep going. I think we riled them up already, and absolutely that's our intention to get justice. Absolutely. Um, we don't mean any disrespect to Cynthia's family by no means. We want justice for her as well.
Right.
I know you do. I've heard you talk about her. This is not disrespect to them in no way, but talk to me about what's next. At one point in time, we believed they were fixing to open this case back up.
there are a lot of silent supporters or a lot of some quiet supporters. They message me. They talk to people in the community about it. They don't feel comfortable saying or doing anything more publicly.
Absolutely, they need to be protected.
And I think if there are numbers with it, if a group of people make a commitment to come forward and say what they know, it'll be safer. But there is power in numbers,
There
and
is.
we need people to say what they know, because it is the silence that is perpetuating all of this,
I
that is
agree.
perpetuating the corruption and the intimidation. So, I mean, as of now, the 1 year anniversary is right around the corner.
The
The
31st or 30th.
Yep, 31st.
31st. That's my anniversary to my
Oh,
husband that was murdered as well. And his
oh,
anniversary of his murder is the 25th of this month too. So that's another thing that kind of tugged at my heart, you know.
right. Yeah,
Um,
I'm sorry.
what can we do as a community? What, you know, we can do all the lives and all the podcast episodes, which we need to continue. Not saying, but what can else can we do as a
S-
community?
Spread the word about seeking justice for the Gobbles, and try to encourage people to speak.
To speak
Because,
up and speak out.
yeah, because so far I have spoken to so many different people who loved Cindy and Greg both. And there's so much information that they've given, but not one of them believes Greg could have done this. Not one of them. And I believe there's a bunch of people out there who have pieces. They have pieces that will tie all of this together. And it's just going to take one
Hmm.
for us to find out what really happens.
You know, what you just said kind of took me back again to Micah's case. You said um, there's just one, that one person that told the keys. But you also, right before that, said there's power in numbers. And to hear with Micah, you know, so many people, you said so many people have spoke up to you um, saying that there's no way Greg could have done this versus all of the people that have spoke up and said Micah did not do this to herself.
Right.
So, you know, you see both ends. And what are we all lying about Micah? All these people they're just lying and there's one person that's telling the truth? I don't think so. And in this case, I think it's the opposite, and it speaks volumes.
And every person who has reached out to me has listed at least one of those two reasons for why they will not speak more publicly. And that is the Davie County Sheriff or Brandy.
Okay, that's enough. What? Sorry. Um, something has to be done. Um, is there someone other than Davie County Sheriff's Department that we could start contacting?
Calling the Davie County Sheriff's Department and demanding that they reopen this case and actually investigate it. I mean, I don't necessarily want to tell people to reach out to me, but I will say I don't trust that Davie County will be honest about who.
No.
Yeah. So because of that, I guess I would like to encourage anybody who has any information who does decide to reach out to Davie County to also reach out to me, so that
Absolutely.
nobody can deny that it happens, later.
Shit under the
I
rug.
mean, these people, of course, these people, I will keep them completely anonymous. I will never reveal, anything unless I'm given permission to at some point.
I will say this just to encourage anyone that is a witness or might have knowledge of something. Um, Danielle will definitely hold on to her word. She is a woman of her word. Whether it's to do something or not, she is a woman of her word, and you are safe coming to her. She will put it in the proper authorities' hands, I believe. Not, and I think that calling the FBI would be a good idea too. In on this, I mean, were they ever even brought in to talk about coming in on it?
I called them when I made the 22 discovery, and you can't fire a 22 from a 9mm. I called them to just kind of let them know that Greg had been cited at Solid Rock Church less than 12 hours before being found deceased. And the woman laughed at me and referred me back to Davie County Sheriff's Department. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, so they're gonna have to laugh at all of us then. I'm sorry. Um, okay. Is there any theories, or shall I say other suspects, allegedly, that there's these theories? You know how there's always these other theories going around in cases. Is there any of that going on in this, or is it just he did it? He didn't do it.
There are a lot of people who think that Cindy's daughter could be involved.
Motive.
A few money.
Yeah. Okay.
A few people even suspected Josh. Same motive.
Okay.
Then there were some people who, wondered if it was possible that Cindy could have had a secret romance, a secret affair, if that person could have been involved, or if they were involved in something more like nefarious, with nefarious type groups. But
John Paul Miller.
And what I'll say to that is, from everything I can tell, if there was any connection to any group like that, it was one of those unintentional connections, or unbeknownst to them connection. From everyone I have spoken to, and I've asked it in different ways of different people, and they shoot it right down. Oh no. Greg would have reported that. He would have reported that in a second. So there's
More than likely. However, there is always that, chance that it could have been because it was life or death at the moment, and they were trying to figure out together how they were going to handle it. Something we haven't mentioned in this episode is that they were separated, and that Cindy actually had she filed for divorce or just spousal support? What did she file
she
for?
filed for room and board.
Room and board. Okay. However, there's also this that said that they were seen dancing in the kitchen.
From what I was told, Cindy had been given an ultimatum by her daughter because
It's the daughter thing again.
Yeah, because she really, really hated Greg, and she really, really hated that he put his foot down with her. Cindy would kind of sit there and take it when the daughter was being verbally abusive. Greg didn't, and Brandy hated that. It's believed by many of the people I've spoken to who knew both Greg and Cindy that Brandy had given mom an ultimatum, basically, if you stay with him, you can't see the kids anymore. And so Cindy had actually been staying in a camper behind Brandy's trailer when she left Greg. And I say left with air quotes because she continued to go over there every day, and they spent time together. They had dinner together. And yes, it was also reported that they danced together in the kitchen. They were still very much in love.
I think that one of he just from what people say, was a soft-spoken, gentle man. And I think that him standing up to Brandy was because of her, because of Cynthia. You don't disrespect Cynthia that way, which is what you would want for your mother. You would want someone to be like that for your mother.
And just to clarify, him being soft-spoken, very polite, he was like that with Cynthia. People did tell me he could be quick to react or be quick to anger, but he was never, he would have seen that as a disrespect to Cindy.
To Cindy.
And you don't do that. You know, he
Mhm.
would he would never have done that, but he would absolutely raise his voice to Brandy to make sure she knew not to disrespect her mama like that.
As he should have.
Actually, when Cynthia and Gregory were initially reported missing, one of the news stations had reported that, according to Cynthia's daughter, and then they continue talking. Now, most of the information that had been originally reported, or that the news stations had originally been reporting, wasn't accurate. I've spoken to multiple people who told me that the information wasn't accurate, and I was able to confirm it within seconds of looking at it. One of those things was that Cynthia was a diabetic. I wasn't able to find anything in her autopsy report to support that she was a diabetic. And even when we look at Brandy's Facebook post, looks like she was actually prescribed Mounjaro. And from everybody I spoke to, Cynthia was taking once weekly injectable Mounjaro for weight loss.
Okay.
Now, Brandy had made the statement to news stations and police that her mom did not have her insulin with her, and her mom doesn't go anywhere without it. She needs it. But it's a once weekly injectable that she was actually taking for weight loss. That's just one of the lies that I've been told. Another one was that Greg didn't work, did not contribute to the marital finances in any way, and refused to leave the house because he had nowhere else to go.
Right.
Greg was a canine dog trainer, and he owned properties. He owned, properties separate from the properties, the 340 Country Lane where they lived together. They each owned properties independent outside of the marriage. So a lot of the claims that were being made were very, very easy to debunk, if you will. But in the room and board paperwork, it says in there some of the same allegations. Greg refuses to leave the house. Greg is abusive. Greg doesn't work or contribute to the marital finances in any way. Greg will not allow Cindy a relationship with her daughter. And it keeps referring back to the relationship with the daughter.
That's the opposite of.
They didn't have a relationship.
Was talking.
Exactly. They didn't have a relationship because Brandy cut off contact because she didn't want to be respectful to her mother. It sounded very much like Brandy's voice in the room and board paperwork.
Yeah.
Now, from what I understand, on Easter Sunday, there was a gathering. And Cindy's family, Greg's family, they were all there. And Greg had made the announcement to family so they didn't have to hear it from some other way, that Cindy had filed for room and board. And allegedly, Cindy broke down into tears and said that wasn't true, was basically calling him a liar, that she didn't file for divorce. She wasn't trying to file for divorce. She hadn't left him. She hadn't moved. She wasn't moved out. She wasn't staying with the daughter. So it sounds like there was a bit of ambivalence about that major decision.
Sounds like to me that somebody was behind that.
Right.
And she didn't want it, and was probably afraid that she was going to lose him because she was trying or was listening to Brandy in some sense. My opinion only, but the fact that decisions are being made to withhold information to a closed case, guys. They are saying this case is closed. From Brandy, with all of the suspicion as well. I'm sorry, Brandy, but there is some suspicion about you now. And those things are being uncovered. And wanting justice should always mean wanting all the truth and nothing but the truth, not just what you want to believe. So letting the Davies County Sheriff's Department, allowing her to make those decisions, well, that's just not even ethical, and it's not legal. But we're going to move forward, and we're going to start fighting even harder, put our foot on their necks, and keep them there. Danielle, you have done an amazing job with this case, an amazing
Thank
job. And I know that it's more than just a case to you. Um, I know that you are, and you have bigger plans. And I don't know if you want to talk about it this episode or we'll pick back up after, but you have some good plans that are coming up about this case, and you don't stop. This is what your life has been about for the past couple months, and I think that it's amazing. I think you're amazing.
you.
But
Thank you very much.
I think that everything you're doing, is there anything that we're missing that we could talk about in this first episode? Did we forget
Um,
anything?
there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and just for the Gobbles, I am making phone calls every day. I am following up on things when people reach out to me, or if they provide contact information, I reach out. Keep the tips coming. There is so much happening behind the scenes, and there is going to be much more that people will be aware of very soon.
I can imagine, with just about any case, but especially something to this extent, I can imagine the hate that you've gotten through the Facebook page. I mean, just from the little bit that we got from the videos, I can imagine what you get. And what I would like to say to that, and then you can speak on it, is that motivates us more, guys, to do what we do. We have a purpose for why we do it, and why we're not in it for the money. We're not in it for the clicks or the views like some others are. We're actually in this because we care about these cases, and there's something that's driven us from our own personal lives to do what we do. So when you push us, we're just going to fight back harder. And that's my thought on the hate that we receive. What is your thought on it?
My thought is that I'm getting closer.
Hmm. Yep,
So,
you're almost there.
and the only hate I've received from this has been from the people surrounding one person. So I know what I'm getting close to, and I know that that's probably the right direction if that's the reaction that I'm getting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's amazing.
So I'm going to
Um,
keep going that direction.
Absolutely. We want we want to do this again, if that's in your plans, with a follow up.
Yeah.
I'm excited for
Yes.
those things.
No, me
Yes,
too.
keep pushing. I'm so proud of you. And
Thank you.
again, the hate. So if you are out there and you do think that you want to try to silence Danielle, you're attempting to silence a whole army, because she has an army behind her. And again, it just makes us, fight that much harder and what we do and why we do it. So, and there shouldn't be. Everyone should want to know the truth, and that's how it's always been. We want to know the truth. Like, I look back at the Shanann Chris Watts case, and it's still, people still talk about it every day over here on YouTube and on other apps. And at the end of the day, it's because they want justice, and that's just what we want. They want the answers. That there's still so many unanswered questions, even though the case is closed and he's in prison. You know,
Mhm.
I believe there's still somebody else involved, and so here we are with the Gobbles case. And Greg and Cynthia, let me show a couple of pictures of them before we get off. But they were a good looking couple.
Yeah.
They looked
They
very
looked really
happy.
happy. Yeah, they did.
She was beautiful.
Hmm.
And I like this one of Greg.
Yeah. And people did tell me that he was a jokester. He was a really funny guy, and that's what I like most about those two pictures is that it really, I think, shows that.
I think so too. I do too. Is there anything else you think we can talk about, or are you ready to close this one out and get prepared for the next one?
I think that's enough for now, and we'll save the rest for the next time.
And again, if there's anything that you think that you can encourage the audience to do for this case, Bubbles, what would that be?
Follow Justice for the Gobbles Facebook page. Send any information my way if you are interested in speaking out publicly. If you're interested in being a guest on TikTok, we can an account with a fake name. We can alter your voice. You can even send me a recording of your voice, like after it's been altered, and just have a statement that you want sent off. Because every voice that speaks out about this will make others feel more comfortable in doing the same. Because someone out there has that piece, and you might not know you have that piece, but that's why getting as many people to talk about their experiences with the Gobbles is so important. Please follow the Facebook page. Uh, if you're interested in talking to me, doing an interview, sending me a recording on TikTok, just reach out, let me know. Keep your eyes and your ears open.
I agree. I know that our listeners are right here with us. If you're listening right now, don't let this story fade away. Share it, ask questions, demand answers, because I promise this is far from over. We won't stop, not until there is justice for Cynthia and Greg and Micah Francis. Thank you so much, Danielle. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
thank you for
it,
having
and I will see you on the Tiki Talkie.
me. Alrighty. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.